I'd like to begin by telling a story about my son and I. A few days ago, my son came into my bed in the morning and said, "Mom, Mom, I think a bug bit me." So as he jumped up on my bed, he proceeds to show me his right thigh that had a tiny little red blemish with a black dot. And I thought, oh, that kind of looks like a little bite. Does it itch? And he said, a little bit. I said, does it hurt? He said, not really. I said, well, let's put a little bit of cream on it and a Band-Aid and hopefully it'll go away. So as we proceeded through the day, and that evening as I was putting him into the bathtub, I reached over to pick him up and put him in the tub, and he said, ow, 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 Mom, my bug bite hurts, my bug bite hurts. And as I looked down, I was alarmed to see that on his leg it was no longer a tiny little red blemish with a black dot in the middle. It had grown to the size of a softball, and it had raised up about 2 inches. It was hard and hot and red and almost looked as if like a boil, like it needed to pop. I was terrified at what it looked like, but I wasn't any bit alarmed at what it was. I had had this experience a few years prior myself on my knee, thinking that I had gotten a bug bite or an infected hair follicle, and it proceeded to turn into an infection as well. I took him to the doctor the next day, and not to my surprise or any stranger to what she had said, she told us that it was a staph infection. It was a form of cellulitis, and that we needed antibiotics to treat it, which was not alarming to me. And we started it, and now he's well on his way to getting better. But between my experience and his experience, it has struck the curiosity in me again of just what exactly staph is. So with a little bit of research and searching the web, I've discovered that Staphlococcus, and what I want to touch on is that Staphlococcus is a form of staph infection, which is Staphlococcus, the medical term, and has several different strands. 30 different species of Staphlococcus exist according to everydayhealth.com. There's 30 different types or species of this. It's not just one and you get it and then it's treated. There's many different antibiotic routes and medicines that are needed for each and every different one. The most common is the Staphlococcus aureus, which is the one that my son and I got, which creates the cellulitis. Some other examples of the Staphlococcus aureus that create the skin infections are impetigo around the mouth, styes on your eye, which I was alarmed to know that that was staph. I had no idea. I had no idea that impetigo was staph, and that is as well. Ingrown hair follicles, that's staph, waiting to enter. It's just waiting for an entry into the body. The bacteria sits on the skin, which is another alarming fact that I discovered, is that 30% of all people have Staphlococcus aureus in their nostrils at any given time, and that staph sits on our bodies all the time. Everybody has staph. It's just waiting for that opportunistic moment where it can enter into our bodies and wreak havoc. Definitely it hits the people with weak immune systems first, and secondly, it's waiting for an entry hole like a cut or, like I said, nostrils, mouths, anything like that, that it can attack on. According to the kidshealth.org, there's very many different strands of different levels of seriousness of Staphylococcus aureus, which is the second thing I want to touch on. And that is that Staphylococcus aureus, once ingested, which is another huge point I've never realized before, if it's ingested, it can also wreak food poisoning. And if it gets into our bloodstream, it can put our bloodstream or our body into toxic shock syndrome and become fatal or deadly, highly dangerous. The last part and the most serious part of the Staphylococcus aureus is the MRSA. The MRSA is what they call it, and that's the one that when you go into the hospitals, they're like, have you had a history of MRSA? If so, then you are secluded and quarantined to your own area because they don't want to get it spread within. And that's because it is just that. It's methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, and it is highly resistant to any antibiotics. It needs a huge broad spectrum, steady pace of antibiotics to fight it. It's highly infectious and it can be deadly in people that are compromised, such as cancer patients or what, so you can't get it into the hospitals. The last thing I wanted to touch on was how we prevent this, how we detect it and how we prevent it. Well, like I said, with my son, it starts as a little red dot, looks like a boil or a pimple. It doesn't really look like much. It kind of mimics a spider bite. And how you prevent it and from getting it is try not to have any cuts or open wounds. You definitely is transmittable from person to person and skin to skin contact. It's highly infectious, so if somebody has a wound or has staph and it's not covered or opened, you want to make sure that they are covered and bandaged and use antibiotic ointment, and they're being treated with antibiotics so that the infectious state of it is lessened. But more than anything, on a day-to-day basis, good hygiene, hand washing, washing your sheets and your pillows and your towels, and not sharing your personal hygiene products with other people is the best defense against it. And then definitely making sure that all of those hygiene practices are implemented, especially if you're in schools or daycares or hospital settings and that where people are in a small area. A lot of people are in a small area. So a lot of new facts, a lot of new and interesting things to learn about Staphylococcus aureus. I wished that I had time to tell you about all the other different strands, but I'm still learning myself. So indeed, make sure that your hygiene is good. Make sure that you cover any wounds, and make sure that that you get treatment right away. Get on those antibiotics. And the most important thing, especially for the MRSA, is to make sure that you continue the full spectrum of the antibiotic so as not to become unresistant to antibiotic treatment. So, thanks for listening.